feels he's a really happy man.
Postman Pat has the best village. It was a lovely summer morning in Greendale. Pat had finished delivering the village letters. He met Mrs. Pottage and Mrs. Thompson. "Morning, all. What a day," said Pat.
"Morning, Pat," said Mrs. Thompson. "Just the weather to make the garden grow."
When Pat arrived at the post office, he said, "Well, everything seems to be growing in here. I've never seen so many flowers. I wonder where Mrs. Goggins is. She must be here somewhere." In came Sam Waldron with his arms full of flowers. "Hello, Sam," said Pat. "More flowers? There'll soon be no room for letters. Now there's a nice blossom. Oh, it's Mrs. Goggins."
"Now then," said Sam, "I'll just put them here till you decide where you want them. I hope I've not brought too many."
"Oh, Sam," said Mrs. Goggins, "we'll need a lot more if we're going to win the competition."
"Never you fear," said Sam. "There are plenty more. Thanks to Alf's compost, my garden's teeming with flowers."
"What's this competition you're on about?" said Pat.
"Oh, Pat, you must have heard about it," said Mrs. Goggins.
"The best village competition, of course," said Sam.
"And it's sponsored by the Royal Mail," said Mrs. Goggins. "So we'll have to do our best. I'm going to cover this old post office with flowers."
"I wondered what was going on," said Pat. "I never saw Greendale look so bright. I thought it was just the nice weather. I suppose there'll be some judges coming to pick the winner."
"Yes," said Sam, "but nobody knows when they're coming. It'll be a surprise, just to keep us on our toes. I'll be off for some more flowers now. Cheerio."
"Well, I'd better get on with the post," said Pat. "Flowers or no flowers."
"Oh, Pat," said Mrs. Goggins, "when you call at Greendale Farm with that parcel, will you collect something for me? Mrs. Pottage promised me some tubs to put the flowers in outside the shop."
"I'll remember. Don't worry," said Pat. "No trouble. With all this sprucing up going on, I'll not be able to forget. Bye." Pat bumped into a ladder leaning against the wall outside.
"Whoops! Oi! Look out!"
shouted Ted Glenn. "Hello, Ted. What are you doing up there?" said Pat.
"Just giving it a spot of fresh paint, the nose, for this here competition. It's grand stuff, this new paint. You can put it anywhere."
Ted seemed to be splashing paint all over the place. "Yes, I've noticed," said Pat. "Yon letterbox seems to have come out in spots."
"Aye, it flies about a bit," said Ted. "It'll come off with a bit of a rub."
"I don't know about best village competition," said Pat. "I reckon they should call it the busiest village competition." Then Pat caught sight of his van. It was covered with spots of paint. "Oh, my van! It's caught the measles."
"Eh, dear," said Ted. "Now I don't know how that's happened. It does look a bit sickly. You'd best take it to see the doctor."
"It's your blooming paint," said Pat. "You're meant to paint the post office, not every mortal thing for miles round."
"It needs a drop of water to get it off," said Ted. "Drop in at my place before yon paint dries, and I'll give it a good hosing down. That van will be as good as new."
"We'd better get a move on then," said Pat. There was even a speck of paint on Jess's nose. "Look at your nose, Jess," said Pat. "You'd better watch out. Ted'll be giving you a hose down if he sees that." It was time for a quick cat lick. Pat went to Greendale Farm first to get those tubs and to give Mrs. Pottage her letters.
"The tubs are just over by the barn, Pat," said Mrs. Pottage. "But keep a watch out for any strange plants you might see."
There were some very odd blooms in the tubs. They looked rather like two small twins holding twigs. "Goodness me," said Pat. "A greater flowering Katy and a giggling Tom tree. What will Mrs. Pottage grow next?"
Hello, Pat,
said Katy.
"We're talking plants as well. And we can help you to put our tubs in your van,"
said Tom.
"They're a good weight, though," said Pat. "I hope you're strong plants."
"Has your van got spots?"
said Katy.
"Well, it looks like it," said Pat. "I think I'd better take it to see Dr. Glenn for a good dose of water medicine before these spots dry on. And here's some sweet medicine for you." Pat gave them a toffee each.
"Oh, thanks, Pat."
"Goodbye,"
"Goodbye,"
said Katy and Tom.
Pat was on his way. The sun was drying the van's spots. Would he be in time? Ted had the hosepipe ready for him.
"Hey, I thought you'd forgotten," said Ted. "I hope that paint hasn't dried, or we'll never get it off. I'll have to be quick then, Oz. I've got to get down to Pencaster Station the day after tomorrow to catch the train to Scotland."
"Where are you off to, Ted?"
"It's young Caroline's wedding. I cannot miss that, and there's all sorts to do before I go. I'll have to press me best suit for a start, and I can't leave Mrs. Goggins with that hole in her roof. One summer shower and she'll be washed out of bed. Anyway, I've got Peter Fogg lined up to give me a lift to the station on his motorbike. He can get a move on."
Ted sluiced water all over the van.
"It'll be a day or two before I get back," he said, "and I don't want to leave the lorry down at the station. It might disappear. So I'll leave it in the village when I've finished Mrs. Goggins' roof, and then you'll be able to keep an eye on it for me."
Ted wiped the van dry and gave it a good polishing. "Good idea," said Pat. "Have a good time at the wedding, and thanks for cleaning the van up. It looks grand now. Cheerio." The next day the village was covered in flowers. There were tubs and baskets in every street and window boxes on every window. Someone had even filled a wheelbarrow with flowers. Any time now the judges would arrive to choose the best village. Very early in the morning, the phone rang in Pat's house. Sarah answered it.
"Hello? Yes? Oh, are you sure? Is it Ted's? Certain? Oh, you'd know it anywhere. A sight for sore eyes. And what's it doing there? Just sitting there looking ugly. Oh, dear. And the judges? You've seen them on their way? Oh, goodness, all that work making the village beautiful, it'll all be wasted. I'll tell Pat. I'm sure he'll think of something. Yes, right now. I'll tell him to hurry."